We are back with Governor Malloy, continuing our discussion about his budget proposal. So let's continue the discussion about the concessions and savings that you'll be looking for from the union. Dan Haar from The Current says it's impossible. There's not $1 billion per year to give. Is that inaccurate, or?
Well, then he's got to tell the Republicans that that's not possible because they said we should get more. I'm in this very unique place where I'm bound to make everybody unhappy. Right. But we've got to change direction. Otherwise, Connecticut is going to go down the drain. We've got to live within our means. We've got to stop borrowing money to cover operating expenses, which is, after all, just an excuse not to make a hard decision. This budget calls for budget reductions of $1.8 billion over the budget that Governor Rell handed me on November 15th. That's a pretty significant amount of money. I always said that it had to be some combination of both budgetary cuts and eliminations of programs and revenue. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done now.
What's more difficult, cutting spending or raising taxes?
It depends who the audience is, right?
But what's more difficult for you?
Well, I mean, I think they're equally difficult. The fact is that we didn't even talk about revenue until we had downsized government, eliminating 30% of the state agencies that are directly funded. And that's going to pay dividends for years to come as those functions are absorbed and performed by fewer and fewer people are required to do that. So we downsized, number one. Number two, we cut the budget very substantially. In fact, there are howls of people who are complaining that we're cutting too much from the budget. That was my answer to the first way you formulated the question. And only really, and then we also laid out some ground rules. We're not going to borrow money to pay our operating bills. Only after that did we talk about and get to a revenue number. And
unfortunately, I mean, for the average person, unless they're very politically involved and paying attention to all this, taxes is what they hear when they hear about your tax plan.
And listen, you're in the media. You've got to report what you think people are most concentrated on, and clearly they are. This is a very difficult and painful time for everyone. But what's our option? What is our option? Is it to become a different Connecticut, or is it to accept our current future, which is losing jobs continuously for another 20 years, 30 years? I mean, listen, last people with a job turn out the lights. So, this is about change and embracing change for the future. We could have done what other administrations have done, including the last one, and slide more obligations to local government so that property taxes go up very substantially, and we pretend that we didn't do that and that state government didn't play a role. I wasn't elected to do that, and I didn't come to this job with my background as a former mayor, having actually downsized the workforce of a city, to then slide all of those obligations that the state government is supposed to be taking on and participating in to local governments and pretending that I had done my job.
But what do you say to the Republicans who say, we'll talk taxes all day long, but you can't ask people to be giving more when, in their estimation, the budget is going up for the next year and the next year after that?
Well, in reality, with tax dollars, it's not going up. There is some medical expense for hospitals that goes up that distorts it slightly, but that's separately paid for. So in the general fund, the base general fund, we're going to spend less money next year than we're paying this year. We're going to correct a deficit also in the transportation fund, which exists. We're going to make the kinds of investments that need to be made. What do I say? We're doing our best. We're going to save this state. We're going to turn a corner. We're going to be truthful. We've implemented gap financing. We're saving money right and left. For instance, one of the things we're doing is Medicaid. We're not going to hire other people to take on that obligation. We're going to self-insure. That's going to save us $40 million next year, $80 million the year after, $120 million over the course of the biennium budget. This should have been done 2 years ago. Should have been done 4 years ago. Should have been done 6 years ago, and no one stepped up to the plate to make that decision.
Okay. There were also some new ideas and investments in there. Good news. One of them is that new incentive program called First Five. Tell me about that and how you think that'll work.
We are going to, well, first of all, in the budget, what we did is we took all of these disparate, numerous agencies working on economic development, and we're putting them into one. And then we're going to take all of the potential tools that new agency has and put them together. And we're going to say to the first 5 companies that consider adding 200 jobs or more to the state of Connecticut, and a long-term commitment that we're going to work especially hard with you. We're going to give you perhaps access to programs that you might not have had access to before, or in combination. Now, I have to tell you, I've already been contacted by several companies who are interested in bringing more than 200 jobs to the state of Connecticut, just based on having given that speech yesterday.
That's excellent. I mean, and those are new businesses. New business.
Well, actually, one is brand new, out of New York, and another would be a state business that would add actually substantially more than 200 jobs.
Excellent. All right. And you also talked a lot about your continuing commitment to education, and you talked about a program that you were able to make successful as mayor of Stamford, and that was pre-K for students.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that if we're going to close the achievement gap that exists in many of our all of our urban areas, that one of the tools to be used is universal access to pre-kindergarten. It doesn't mean that we create an additional year of school. What it means is we create a program that does not deny a child an access seat to pre-K because of their parents' financial circumstances. So it's different than that. It's less expensive than that. But that's the best way to close the achievement gap. And in this budget, we make a substantial down payment. We're actually putting about $1.7 million more into that program. But we have already had discussions with 3 different foundations that will also be putting their own money. So we're talking about $6 million additional money going into universal pre-K programs in the state over the next 2 years that would not have happened otherwise.
So those are the things that you're happy to be able to announce.
Listen, we've got to do a better job in preparing our workforce. We're failing too many of our children in this state. We're losing too many opportunities, particularly in our urban areas where most of our students are going to be coming out of over the next 20 years. If we don't do a better job in those urban environments, we're not going to have the workforce for the jobs that we want to attract to Connecticut.
You know, President Obama has said something along the lines of, I'd rather be a one-term president and solve some problems than be a two-term president and, really get nothing done. I mean, raising taxes, whether you're honest about it or not, is not going to get you any votes. Do you even think about the politics of it all at this point, or not at all?
I just finished an election a while ago. I believe that if you do the right thing, and in Connecticut's case, it means telling the truth about the budget and putting the state on a sustainable platform and bringing everyone to the table. The rest will take care of itself, and I've got years to worry about that.
Yeah, you do. So six weeks, and how many snowstorms later? And budget?
55 to 70 inches of snow. We had 398 collapsed agricultural buildings. I've sent a letter off to the agricultural secretary. I've sent a letter off to the president saying that they really have to think about declaring this a disaster so that we can get more dollars to small businesses who have been adversely affected and our farmers who have been adversely affected and some of our school systems who have been adversely affected based on a weather condition that we haven't seen the likes of actually ever.
All right. Well, we wish you good...
actually, 1888.
Okay, 1888.
Great blizzard.
We weren't around then. We wish you good luck. We know you've had a tough couple of weeks, and right from the get-go.
I want to stop you.
No?
Doing your job is not tough. Not doing your job and looking yourself in the mirror, that's hard.
All right.
So I'm doing my job.
And we thank you for it. Thanks a lot. Governor Dan Malloy, thanks a lot. Coming up, we're going to talk with party leaders about how the governor's budget might or might not affect Tuesday's special elections.